Hello, is anyone there?
Hey, Jen, from my computer.
Oh, so you're calling in as well?
Yes, but
Okay.
boy, it's better.
Hello.
Hello? This is Kachi.
Hi, it's Julia Carrera.
Julia, are you calling in as well?
There was a person in the building, and we saw that you disappeared. Was it okay with the connection?
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, I had some other business I had to take care of, and I thought I would be able to come back on, and I wasn't.
Bummer. Just so you know, we're gonna have a transferability working group after they close the building working group, whatever working group they're closing out.
Was that discussed in the last call?
Yes, it was.
Fabulous.
And I want to talk about the state pilot program for inspections, the problems, and the disappearance of the ordinance locally, and no 20-hour notice required, and things are just kind of not right.
Yeah, I think so too. We definitely need to discuss that, especially the lack of 24-hour notice.
Also, what the response was to me was, oh, those people are behind gates, so the 24-hour notice is not a problem. We can give it anyway. And I get that point. But the state, they push through lots of gates. So
Yeah.
it doesn't,
Agreement that aligns there, not two different things.
Yeah. They'll call you and make you come to the gate to let them in.
That's crazy. I mean, what happens if you're out of town, as, we often are?
Geez, the same thing.
You've been working and you're running an errand or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, in these rural areas, we're not always very close to our farm. I could be running an errand, and that might mean I'm an hour away.
Just leave.
Yeah.
And then we also talked about the state platform that the board dates at the end of the year. They start the process in October, and how the state working group needs to participate in that.
Yes, definitely.
Do we have anybody from the county? Just Hannah, I'm asking whether there's anybody from the county online.
Jen, I'm glad you're here, Hannah.
Yeah, participate till 4:30. I have to go then, but yeah, I think it was important enough to interrupt my vacation.
I really hear you, but that's because of my car phone speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I'm only able to participate until 4:30, and I just felt like it was important enough for me to interrupt my few days with my family. It seemed like an important one.
Okay. I'm driving to Corderas, so I'm probably going to have to call in the line spot.
Hello. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started.
If it was on the same side, you're going to get away with it, but see, they're not.
So let's go ahead and do introductions. Can you see who's on the phone first, please?
This is Hannah Nelson. I'm here until 4:30.
So Jen Procacci.
Okay. Anyone on the phone?
Julia.
Yeah, I know. I heard her. I know she's there. Okay, is there anybody else on the phone? Okay, we'll go in through the room. Mary Lynn?
Mary Lynn Hunt, Chief Planner, Planning and Building Services.
Siobhan Holmes, Program Administrator, Cannabis, Department of Ag.
More than farm.
Ron Edwards, CK Nursery.
Karen Barris, Mendocino, Cannabis Resource.
Good, I think we have you somewhere.
Karen Howell, Cultivator, and Treasurer of MCA.
Wild Ranch. Company was called,
Gentleman, Dragonfly, MCA. Alan Durrell, Golden Mill Center. Janine Coleman, Director of Mendocino Operations Project.
Carmel Angelo, Mendocino County CEO.
Coordinator Executive Office. Amanda Executive Office.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. So this is the State Requirements Working Group, and we had a couple other working groups today, and our goal is to go to the board on August 7th. We want to update the board on all the working groups, whether we're closing out a working group or not. And the first working group, Track and Trace, we decided we do need to come back closer to the end of the year. But for the most part, that working group it won't be that active until the end of the year. And then I'm sorry? You want to answer that, Ron?
Yeah, because there's not a lot of difference or transition that's happening right now.
So?
And we'll know more as we get to the end of this 180-day period of what we need to do. We've identified some problems and things, but there's nothing we can really do to So we're going to kind of table that down and then go forward when we have March.
Thank you, Ron. And then building was the next working group, and we went through that and came up with some actions and some report out to the board, which basically Ron and Scott Ward have been working on the FAQs, so those will get finished. A few other things that we're going to make recommendations on. We also identified a couple key topics that we will be referring out somewhere else, one being generators and microbusiness testing rooms, and so those will get referred out possibly to the ad hoc, we're not sure. And then now we're into state requirements. One thing we did do, can I ask, it's really okay, you have a lot of dog lovers here, I'm sure. What kind of dog is this?
Okay.
Can you bring her out? Oh my God, so adorable.
Oh yeah, you're on the agenda.
Yeah, that's fine, you know.
Okay.
People bring their dogs to work here all the time. Okay. All right, so unless someone has an allergy, does you have an allergy in here?
Pretty good, thank you.
Okay. Looking at the Willis Environmental Center representative. Is it okay, or do you have a problem?
I have an allergy. No, I don't have a problem. It doesn't.
Well, probably will bark less if she's in her arms rather than.
Exactly, thank you.
So one of the actions we did, one of the things we did in the last working group in the building use requirements was to go through Hannah's email. And so I don't want to repeat this because a lot of the same people are in the room. So what I'm going to do is go through and tell you what we looked at and really what we decided as far as that work. So I'm hoping that everybody has a copy of Hannah's email. And it's a 4-page email, and I know it went out. So I'm hoping everyone has it, and I think everybody in here, just about everybody in here has it. So the first item was insufficient notice and inability to retain a consistent schedule. We were going to start the first Thursday with the same time frames. We didn't do it this month because of the 4th of July. So starting next month with the working groups that we will be having, they will be the first Thursday of every month, and you know the time frames are 9:30, 1:30, and 3:30, and so that will not change. I don't know what those working groups will look like. Regarding the overlay working group, I have no idea what's happening with that. Can somebody?
Sure, I can.
Yay!
All
right.
Yay. We're meeting, we're doing community meetings. There'll be 4. There'll be one in Covelo, one in Laytonville, one in Paya, and one in the Florida area. We're working on getting locations. If anyone knows anything besides Harbor Hall and the Garden Center in Laytonville that would host, please let me know. I'm still trying to find a lot. Yeah. It's one of those things where there's very limited in Covelo and Laytonville when things are available. So we're doing our best, but we're hoping to have that stuff this week. We're going to send out the press release and all the information to all of the people at a minimum 10 days before the meeting.
Casey can help you. He's on.
Yeah. I think we have more people on the call now. I think Nadia's been calling. We have Covelo that I think, so yeah, we're working on getting all of those places booked, and you'll get a notice at least 10 days before the meeting. It'll be at the end of the month. The meeting.
Could you mention the light that you mentioned? Could you repeat it? You had Covelo, Layville, Yucca, and what?
Fort Bragg area.
Oh,
somewhere
great.
on the coast.
Yeah, thanks.
Are you looking to invite just the people in the Mitchell Creek area, or is it a larger Fort Bragg?
Mitchell area, like somewhere out, like somewhere in that general area.
Right.
But the invites to generally the Mitchell Creek area.
If you have a good location besides like the typical in the city of Fort Bragg area, please let me know.
All right. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we are on a regular schedule. The minutes review prior meetings, timely, well advanced. We're going to follow up with that and make some changes to how we're doing our minutes. The balancing open participation with productivity. What we talked about was that when you bring new people into the group and then everybody has to catch up, that it slows you down. Also that you have some people that come consistently and some people who are on the list that they belong to the committee, but they don't come at all, and that's consistent. And then in the boardroom, some of these people have a problem and say they didn't know something. So what we're looking at is this is still an item that we'll revisit with the next 4 or 3 working groups as far as the open participation versus productivity. As far as number 4, talking about subcommittees and streamlining, scheduling authority, we did talk about scheduling, and I think we kind of worked through that. We talked about authority and boundaries, but what we came up with really is that there's a desire to have more structure with the working groups. And so with the next set of working groups, our goal is to have more structure. As far as authority, these working groups will not have authority. That's just how it is. They don't have any authority. And there's no one in this group, including myself, that has any authority. The authority is...
I'm sorry, Carmel, I'm sorry. Let me refine that, because what I meant by authority was not authority to enact something or enact a policy or anything like that, but authority to discuss new topics as they are applicable, because I think we got some confusion when we voted as a working group to combine local ordinance with the state requirements, because we saw the overlap, and then further into trouble when some of the members of that working group wanted to talk about transferability. So I didn't really mean authority to enact anything. I just kind of meant about our process and boundaries or whatever. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify.
No, that's okay. That's a lot of clarification, and it really is a key point. And, you know, it's something really that the only way to work around that is that whatever new topic comes up, well, first of all, we go to the board next month and we say this working group has closed out. We will now be starting a new working group. We will also say what we think the charge of that working group is. And so, you know, it narrows the scope a little bit, but it gives us a clarification that had we done that transferability, that we heard right away that we can't discuss transferability. So basically what I'm saying is that the authority to even have these working groups falls with the board. And what those working groups discuss, unfortunately, it's not it's not really a fully free process. It's not like, you are the subject matter expert, and therefore you talk about the things that you think that we talked about. You might be the subject matter expert, but clearly the board is making the decisions as to really what the discussions are. And transferability is one that it's supposed to be a working group, but not part of any existing working group. So that's what we're thinking. But Hannah, certainly we're open to suggestions if you have a better way you think of dealing with this item.
Well, the only issue that I would like to see maybe staff and the board talk about at the next board meeting is a mechanism where there is a time-sensitive issue that was not necessarily anticipated with the working group, that dovetails naturally into the working group, but for us to have some process to have the okay so that the board doesn't feel like we're going outside of what we were originally tasked with, but that we can have a quick round to be able to move forward on it and not just waiting a month, or whatever.
Well, the other way to do this, well, let me go through this and then we'll come back.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
Let me come back then.
All right, okay.
I have a suggestion. Maybe having an agenda for each meeting that clearly says what we're speaking about, that goes in front of the board, and they can say, oh yeah, I can see why you're talking about that agenda item, but no, we'll wait up on this one.
Well, depending on timing, it's possible this could work. But let me finish and then we'll get back to that. So the limited resources, we talked about setting an agenda for these meetings and getting that agenda out. But as far as limited resources, we have limited resources, so that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. We talked about a process of bringing forth new issues to the board, and that pretty much seems to be a key issue. And rapid response task force that Hannah talks about. I'm not sure how that would happen, but one of the issues around this that we discussed was around the state requirements and how we would be moving forward, and that sometimes there may be quick action that's needed. And Sarah explained our process, which basically we have a legislative platform that has cannabis on it, which means that if we need to send a letter to the state or to the legislature, either in support or against the bill or some action of the state, that we can do that with the chair's signature and then go for approval. So basically, if there was something we needed to do, or as contacting the state or the legislature, we have the ability to do that. So that doesn't take a rapid response task force, but it takes you understanding what the process is. So it may be a little bit more in-depth than what we just said, but that was part of the discussion. So the creation of local amendments under substantive issue, I'm going to leave that one alone because I don't think they're, basically we have an ad hoc that's going to work on the local ordinance, and then we have the working groups. And unless we want to dissolve the working groups and put everything in the ad hoc, if that's a recommendation that the working groups want to make, I don't see a change there. The temporary task force, we talk about for permanent state regs about to be issued, 45-day response and additional responses. Again, that is something we can do and go to the board afterwards. Requirements, we're pretty much done with that based on the last work group meeting. We will have one more working group meeting on building requirements. The permanent license procedures for the working group, I don't have any notes by that one.
Ron is working on that.
Is there, Ron?
Sure. Ag is working on a new process for that.
Ag, yeah. All right, so Ag is working on that. The next one, public information website. We spent a lot of time talking about the websites and the problems, so we know they're ongoing, and we're working on the website and trying to pull the information together, and also that can get to one site and see what's going on with the others. Micro business working group, we don't have one. and microbusiness is not on the list, but we did talk about putting microbusiness somewhere. Then the on-site consumption tasting rooms, that's something that we think is an environmental health issue, so we will talk with environmental health about that, and extinguish and transfer. Siobhan is working on that. So that's, we spent time on Hannah's email. Thank you, Hannah, for your email. We spent time on it in the last committee meeting, and that is for the recommendations of that work group. So, Jude.
Are we discussing what we just went over?
Sure. Yeah.
So I have two questions or comments. One concern I have, and which made the idea of dumping everything into the ad hoc committee very attractive for a hot second, is that we have so little horizontal communication between the working groups. It's very hard for the working groups to even function in a discrete fashion with the county staff in the way that they do. So then we've had for some period of time, for example, microbusiness and coastal, a new coastal, local coastal plan and how that's affecting coastal zone and what's going on there. Those have been floating issues that haven't been, they've been dabbed in different working groups. Now even subsumed under the building requirements, or coastal commission is anyway, and microbusiness not given a home yet anyway, and when that's one of the top, in our surveys, one of the top 5 issues that people in the cannabis industry in Mendocino are concerned with, if not the top one, as microbusiness. And so I guess it's a structural question I have, you know. I don't understand how coastal commission issues got subsumed under building requirements, for example, and it doesn't make any sense to me, you know. So that's just, there's just some confusion about how this is getting on.
Watch out.
That's one of my comments.
Where you go on? Who do you want to respond to that?
Well, I'll just say that Hannah's email touched every working group that we already have. So it was just, we had time in the building requirements. We had a full group here, and that's why kind of more in depth of talking about everything. No, it is not part of the building. Coastal Commission stuff is not part of the building group. It's not, that's not what it applies. That's kind of its own issue, as you well know, and that's something that, you know, planning's taking on outside of the working group, because the working group, there's a lot for the working group to work on for social condition issues. That's a matter of coming up with the ordinance to submit to the commission. So that's its own kind of, it's not really a working group topic.
Okay.
It's bigger than the working group.
Hello, this is Julia Carrera.
Go ahead, Julia.
Thank you. I was hoping we could talk today about the newly enacted agricultural inspector at the state level pilot program. Is it possible to talk about it with state working group?
Pilot program?
Yeah, the program and how it's affecting the local ordinance, how there's no communication in regards to what's required, and how we might better streamline the whole process through the inspection, letting people know that inspections are happening. No one knows that's happening.
Well, let's put that on the list, and if we get to it today, that would be great. But let's just put it on the list. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Jim.
So, I mean, maybe people want to stay with substantive issues, but I have another comment back on the process issues that Hannah raised. In relation to that, this question of the authority of the working groups, I don't think anyone is suffering under the illusion that the working groups have any authority. It's very clear. We have to work with staff, and we have to present them to the board of supervisors. However, there's a big spectrum between having authority and being applicated and just, patronized as the you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I don't think that we're there, and I don't think we're there. But I think people have felt in this last period, and certainly gets reinforced by the paucity of information on this agenda about Kelly Overton or any kind of summation or where are we today with what happened there. People feel like we put a lot of work over the months into different issues. There are life, there are existential questions. And then the question of whether, when we make say, for example, a proposal to the board of supervisors and the Board of Supervisors may seem to agree or give some sort of direction that seems favorable, and then it disappears. And that has happened on occasion. So that's just by way of illustration. Then I think there's some demoralization that occurs in the working groups, and unless we can really make the working groups members feel, and not just, in a subjective sense, oh, I feel like we really are a robust and muscular little more appendage to the county structure. No, but some real, we got to feel like there's some going on, something results from what we do. So, and that's the question that I have about, I think the subtext of Hannah's points about authority. Are we an advisory body because we are industry specialists and professionals and do bring a certain amount of expertise to the table? And how do we see that as being realized in county policy? That's the overall problem. So that's all I wanted to just put out there for people to think about.
I think one of the things we talked about was that we as industry people have information, the county has information, and we were talking about some kind of way to aggregate that together, maybe a newsletter, so that we at least know what we're all working on. That was something we discussed at the last meeting. And I think that would be a good template to help us things, and quite frankly, the board could see that and see that there's a lot of information that they may not be aware of that we're all working on together.
Well, can I just respond to that, Ron? I mean, sounds wonderful, but I think what I constantly hear from both sides of the table is capacity and exhaustion and lack of staff, and all of us are doing millions on both the staff side with the county and among us, especially in this season. And in line with what Karen suggested, maybe we could just show the agendas to the board. Anything that increases communication, I'm in principle in favor of. But I see the shortcomings, and that's, I just think we have to figure out a better way to cross-pollinate the work of the committees that is effective for the staff and actually moves us towards action on the policy level.
Say something to this, Hannah.
Yes.
To Jude's last point, that was the idea of not so much a rapid response task force, but kind of a group of working group members from each of the various working groups that get together separately and regularly, maybe more frequently than once a month, maybe every other week, with staff to kind of fill in the gaps of the different working groups, as well as the separate work that the staff's doing, the separate work that industry is doing, and just kind of have a forum of bringing it all together. And that was kind of the idea behind my having this, I don't even know what to call it. I don't care about what we call it, but just basically a group of representatives that are kind of pulling that stuff together, but with staff, because obviously some of the issues are not necessarily issues that are going to be brought back to the Board of Supervisors. They're more internal policy stuff that if the staff doesn't understand that their good intent of trying to implement a certain policy has unintended consequences, then it's like reinventing the wheel if we don't have this kind of intermingled information back and forth.
Other thoughts, comments on this?
I have a couple of mine, just,
And it's the same topic.
well, it's over and over some of the things that came up in Hannah's email. I mean, it's not
Sure,
exactly.
sure.
So on the public information web, how to share information better, the state is looking to implement where every time someone calls and asks a question, they're going to log it, kind of like what you do with the public information request already on the county site, that where each question is logged with the answer. So before we come bother your staff, we can have a chance to look through your file of already responses. So just as a communication tool, that seems like if you could get one person to set up a system, have it down between ag, building, the different agencies we have to deal with. Every time a question is answered, log it. So we can just go online and look at it before we bother staff.
Can we do that with fire stuff?
We put together an FAQ.
Oh.
So anyways, I heard the state's doing it. I thought that'd be a great way, because I know you probably answer the same questions how many times a week. So if it could be logged somewhere and let them go there first, if they feel like they need more information beyond that, then they contact staff. And then the other one is on-site consumption, which to me is a really big issue, because I'm on the marketing committee, which is another thing I'd like to learn more about while I'm here today. And I think it's going to play a key role in our county tourism development. So we sent the CEO and the Board of Supervisors the example of the Oakland policy and how they're doing it. And they've already gone through all of this. We don't have to reinvent this wheel. Look at what Oakland's doing, and then scale it down to our neighborhoods. And there's already so many great examples of on-site consumption that we can look at. So even though, yes, it is an environmental health issue, it's already been dealt with in other areas. And I recommend us try to find ones that we think that would work here. And starting there, let's don't start fresh. And yes, I'd like to know more about the development of the marketing and counter-tourism. And if I really were to say what I think we need to do, I think that each district needs to do a business plan. And that's all my thoughts on that.
What do you mean by each district?
Well, in particular, the third district, we're going to go.
So each supervisor's district?
Yes, yes. Now, we look at the different license types that are coming into that district, see what license types are missing, see what ancillary businesses need developed, and come up with an economic plan to fit each region. And I think that could be one of the healthiest things.
Actually, one of our staff members has done that also.
Because we don't have way too many of one license and, a bunch of cultivation, but no way to transfer it. Or we're having to hire our transport people out of county, where we could make that a county business. Same with the waste. So guys are coming up from Santa Cruz right now to do it. Why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we making sure that we've got that ancillary business in each district even? Each district could use a waste site.
If I could, sometimes we're even doing a request for proposal for those services. That we're looking for businesses to come into this area to.
What do you mean a waste site? I'm sorry, I'm not following.
They have to, all waste has to be disposed of properly with a licensed cannabis waste person. And so that's a business we could bring into our county.
Don't you think that's something Mendo
If
Recycle
I
can do?
could, Julia Career, if I could please clarify what the waste is, because I'm dealing in this constantly and doing waste management plans. You can either compost your waste or take it off-site. This is waste management plans that have to be turned in at the state level. And there are several companies outside of Mendocino County that are coming in and providing a service. There are people that are creating new businesses through that service, and it is economic development.
It's not to really just get on the waste issue.
And delivery.
And about economic development.
Yeah. Okay.
Our state requires it now, so that's the kicker here. Laws as they require. And to keep it here, because the more value we can get out of that for our county, the stronger our districts are going to be. And in particular, because I've lived in the third district for most of my time here, I'm very concerned that we don't have a fallback industry.
No. Okay. Jude, did you have anything else on this?
No, it seems to me that I'm always keeping in mind how little resources we have, human resources, to pull this off, that perhaps we can just use the public information website as a way to have better communication among the working groups as well. I mean, it's already there. We staff it, I don't know.
Well, in reality, you can go listen to the videos. They do blog them if you really want to know. But it's each department has a person.
See how much you learned today? God, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey. Anyways, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on your list, your issues list?
No, I don't think there is anything left except that I apologize that I'm still on vacation, so I didn't have an opportunity to attend the building working group. But is that audio going to be available soon? Because I don't want to waste anybody's time. If you guys have extensively discussed this, but down that you gave, and I really appreciate the recap, did really leave me with concrete, like, hey, this is the proposal of how we're going to deal with these things, except, of course, I do appreciate that some of them were just easy, boom, 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 like the scheduling and stuff like that. Thank you very much. But I'm feeling like this put out there, but I'm not sure what a good way to make this an effective, close the loop of how we're going to deal with certain process stuff.
I think it's good to listen to today's because we've kind of been building from the things track and trace, kind of going into each one of how we want to take this process, how we're going to present this to the board, the reality that between May 3rd and today is a gap, so people can be aware of that. So we're trying to recreate that time frame and kind of really regroup to get back to where we originally were with an agenda that was set out. You sent out your agenda items. To get those structures, that's what we've kind of been building on throughout the day.
Yeah, I want to comment that, when we developed these working groups, which was back, August. All I could think of was October. So when we developed these, I don't think that, certainly I can say, I did not think that it would be as lengthy and extensive as the process that it has been. And I really thought, we would do kind of like an ad hoc where you get in, you've got a couple topics, you go through, here's the issue, here's the answer, or here's the three options, we bring them to the board, boom, 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 we make a decision, and we move on. I, for some reason, thought it would be a lot simpler than it was, and is. And then we had the fires. And when we had the fires in October, everybody was diverted. And, just now, I just started coming back to other topics just about 6 weeks ago. Up until then, I was totally dedicated and devoted to the fire recovery. So I think that the lack of structure in these work groups, I will say, in my opinion, has been because we didn't think that these would be ongoing working groups. Now, we're wrapping up 4, and we'll be starting another 4 thereabouts. And so, your comments and recommendations about structure, you're right. We should have more structure. And now that, clearly this is going to be the never-ending process, we will have structure. We'll have structure to the groups, and we'll try to really formalize them a little bit.
I guess the next question, too, would be...
can I say one thing? I just wonder, the key thing, I think, is that if county staff is creating that structure, which I very much appreciated, there's a way for us to be able, as things go along, to adjust, be flexible, but without getting out of control. I think it would be really, really important because, as you've seen, one issue accidentally leads to another issue which is intimately related or sometimes tangentially related and sometimes does need cross-pollination with possibly other existing working groups or other people or whatever. And so I think that if we can have some, when you're thinking about how to provide structure going forward, if you don't want it to come from us particularly because it's too difficult to have too many cooks in the cooking, then if it's somehow built in some mechanism that we can add some flexibility even though there's structure.
There's always flexibility in meetings.
I think we've been going through an experiment together of how to actually structure this. I mean, whether it's going to be ag, whether it's going to be an independent person, and I think we're back to, we've got some pretty good experience in ag, we've got the working groups. I think we're settling into what staffing is needed to do this, what's working, what didn't work.
Do we need 4 working groups? Like, could we just have one with like 15 people in the subcommittees, and you just have like really, I mean, it's not great, but like a really fun meeting.
I just throw it out there. I don't have a...
Focus on
Yeah,
three
so
topics?
here's one working group. These are the 4 subject matter areas, or 3 or 2, and then go from there.
There's a tremendous appeal to that on the surface, but I think it would be a disaster. I think I appreciate, and I think that I appreciate your comments, Colonel, and I think that what you're alluding to is now we're developing the structure that we need, and I appreciate your highlighting the role of fires, but I don't think they are paramount. In August, before the fires ever happened, the paramount thing is nobody appreciated the complexity of this industry. We are not Colorado or Washington or Oregon. We have 4 decades of culture and institutions and really complexity. And interface that with the liquidity of the state regulatory process, or lack thereof at points. So this is a tremendously difficult, and we're in the Emerald Triangle, so we have much more complexity to face, issues to resolve, problems to solve, economic development, incorporating cannabis into it, than in the countries down south. So there was fires or no fires, this is going to happen, the complete part. So now, I think speaking of your point, Mary, about flexible, I think you're being facetious. I think that what we need is, as issues come up to the foreground, we have urged that there be somebody dedicated to look at those issues, especially ones that are really important, which is the problem with dumping into one ad hoc group. Because I think that the complexity of microbusiness versus coastal plan, I would beg to differ with you that it doesn't have a role for us in the particular local coastal plan.
It will at a point, but it doesn't, I don't think it has at the beginning.
Okay,
Until we get into the mix.
Sure.
No, there will be at some point.
Okay, well, fair. But I think that until the state lines get pinned down and some of these really tricky issues that are absolutely halting people from coming in and trying to get their permits and licenses, until those get really worked out better on both the county and the state level, I think it's premature to dump them into one ad hoc committee.
Other opinions on?
I kind of came late, so I don't know everything that's been discussed, but I just feel like in some ways these groups were run efficiently, and then because of a subcommittee that supposedly was not formed properly, then we all got settled here for a minute. And I really feel like we were doing our diligence to make sure that things were put together in a timely manner when state requirements were meeting, and then we found out, things were happening at the state level, like recommendations were getting put together. We were giving it to the board for their sign of approval. Like, I feel like we were all really efficient as a group. So I'm not kind of perplexed by the fact that we're having to regroup and rethink all of this, because I feel like we have been efficient. Yes, we've had leadership that's changed hands several times, but the group themselves, I think we've all been really dedicated and been committed to make sure that we're getting our items dealt with and discussed. And I personally have to say, from the subcommittee coming from transferability, like, we were directed by the executive office. We were formed from you guys. Like, we can look back on that tape. And then we were directed to come up with a recommendation that would then go before the board. And we did that. We were ready. Like, we found out from Kelly, okay, if you guys want to be on this, agenda on this date, you have 2 weeks. We have to get this, proper notice to the public. And we did that. We met all those deadlines. And then that Friday to find out, oh, you're not going to be on the agenda on Tuesday. What? Or ever? I mean, we worked from February until May. And it was not we didn't just decide to create our subcommittee, without anyone's direction. Like, we were directed by you to do that. So I feel really deflated in my efforts. That PowerPoint presentation is still sitting on our computer, and that data and that information needs to reach the public. It does. And I feel like because of that subcommittee meeting, that's why we're having this regrouping. And I don't know, I feel a little perplexed by that. So I think it's important moving forward that we have, we set deadlines for these recommendations to come before the board, and then we work amongst ourselves to get those recommendations on paper and get a review before the group. So that's my on it. And yeah. Oh, you don't?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to be redundant.
No, it's been ongoing, it's a long
I need to put that out there. I think I need to say that.
So when we talk about not having, having lumping them all together, I don't think it's the topics we want to lump together. It's that we see the same people, and it's, we do. But the other thing is, we talked about a lot of issues already when some of you weren't here because you may not be on that working group or whatever. So I think we keep overlapping because the working group topics overlap so many times. So we all should be participating together on each topic.
Yeah, and I think the structure issue goes different. It's not necessarily a state requirement issue. It's that, there's a lot of issues that come up, like we want a consistency of when we get agendas, of when we can get feedback to get on the agendas, of when recommendation goes. There doesn't seem to be, at least that part, consistency between the groups. And I think that's part of the structure is, like, how does it function, and then how does every working group function the same, like the same type of structure. But I think you are right. It's just a lot of the same people, a lot of the same staff time. And I think there is something to be said about, we want to have meetings. I think we have to be really careful to make sure that we don't overmeet. Because, the more and more time you take away, it's like, how many could a building permit issue, that kind of thing. So we want to make sure, we have the working groups are meeting these and the deadlines and all that kind of stuff, but there is some type of visual and realistic expectation that maybe...
And each working group requires a separate agenda, separate meetings. I mean, that's all just more work for staff or whomever. But I think if we all just, we have one working group, and let's put these topics on our agenda, and we tackle them one topic at a time.
Or make sure we're really focused on the ones we need. Like I know we talked about closing the state requirements, and like for us and Tracy, we don't have to meet every single month. Right. We can take some time off so we can put together on the slate. But when you're meeting one day a week and there's like 3 time blocks and that's it, we have to be really proactive in making sure we're on the right topic.
I'm open to persuasion, but I'd like to get a sense of the body from the room because I only sit on 2.
I have a point of process. Do we have to go to the Board of Supervisors to make this change? That's the first thing I want to know. Because if that's the case, then please don't do it.
I think the most pressing outside of whether having one is we have 4 working groups, and we need to close out some of them or we don't get new topics. So one of them was closing out building requirements. Because the next topic on the list of 8 working groups can come on. But until one closes, another one can't come on. You don't have capacity.
Track and trace, give presentation, and we have to hold down until we get the rest of the
So by closing some, we can bring on others because there's no way we can do like 6 working.
But if people think that there's a case to be made for the efficiency of putting everybody in one working group, the question is, can anybody think of how that might certain.
We're going in the wrong direction with that idea.
Yes, I agree. This is
the way the board has responded to our activities. I think I hear what you're saying to make things easier with fewer moving parts and more focus, but we've already been through this denial once. And when we start deviating from what the board has directed, they're going to do it again. Or I should say, he's going to do it again.
So far, we have 1 working group closing out in August.
Hiatus.
No. Building requirements closing out. It's closing. 1 on. And then possibly track and trace being on a hiatus and maybe meeting less.
Yeah.
To accommodate other needs.
Because that was our May 3rd. I think you were there. That's what we decided to do at that point. We were going to find out some things back, what we needed, and then we would go forward at another point because we couldn't really do.
Yeah. And once the recommendation comes out in November or December, then we can.
It would seem a little strange that we don't have
This is Julia Barrett. Can I say something?
But
before that, doesn't it seem that this is the local area, right? And we have a local ordinance working group, and that was it. And now it's been taken over, right? It's very suspicious.
I think if we would have tried to, remember when it went from state requirement / local ordinance is when the board made this decision that they would take it. You know what I'm saying? We were state requirement / local ordinance, and when that happened is when it became a problem.
No, it's when we were trying to make the presentation that group already existed.
Not the sugarcoating, but we understand why it's
coming up, that would be.
There's someone on the phone that would like to say something?
You haven't stopped talking, Julia. Hi, Julia.
I just don't think it's a good idea to make one working group. There's too much work to be done, and things won't get done cleaner.
Okay, got that. We're keeping on the working group. We're closing out building requirements so we can bring on another one. And then track and trace, we're working on hiatus to free up more time.
And one of the things that we talked about earlier was the formation of the group. In other words, to have people that belong, that if you miss so many meetings, that we should have the ability to have alternates who can monitor it on the phone, and if somebody is not participating, then we would move somebody else in who participate, because it is time consuming, and like it was mentioned earlier, when people say, well, I didn't know this was happening, I think if we tighten that up with the agenda, which we discussed earlier throughout the meetings in the day, that was kind of the idea of getting a more constant group.
That's the opposite perspective, and I don't disagree with that, is that the board of supervisors is saying we didn't have enough diversity, and then you start locking it down, and then
it's...
I have a question. And I have to leave in a couple minutes, but how do you see the ad hoc committee and the working groups interfacing, or is that just totally separate?
So the direction that was given by the board is that the ad hoc will deal with the local ordinance, and that the working groups will deal with those topics that they're, that they're slated to deal with. There should not be any duplication or interface or overlap at all between what the ad hoc is doing and what the working groups are doing.
So, in other words, the working group wouldn't inform the ad hoc about, some of the working group issues do potentially involve local ordinance changes or recommendations to the board to consider.
I think that if working groups and the members of the working groups, not staff, but the members of the working groups, begin to share your issues in the working groups with the ad hoc members, and I'm talking about the board members, it's quite possible that the board will decide to just fold everything into the ad hoc. And I would leave that up to the rest of you to decide whether that's something you would want to see or not. And, I think that, no good deed goes unpunished. And, there are times that we all think a really good idea, we're going to push it forward, and then before you know it, something goes sideways, and it's a whole different outcome than what we thought. Sure. So I would say I have no opinion on this, and quite honestly, I can go any way.
Carmel, from your experience in previous issues and I know that there haven't exactly been working groups in this kind of fashion before, but in other comparative going on with the board and ad hoc committees, do you have any sense of whether I'm wondering if we could eliminate the number of working groups that are dealing with issues that the ad hoc committee is dealing with, and only
there's no overlap, Hannah. That's what I just said. That I asked for clarification in the board meeting, and the board or one supervisor and the rest of them nodded their made it very clear that there is no overlap between these working groups and what the ad hoc is working on. These working groups do not have any authority or permission or direction or whatever we want to say to work on anything that is, any topic that is in that local ordinance.
Hannah?
And so then we then free up, then we could probably free up a number of issues, don't you think?
We kind of blew it this one. When Supervisor Brown asked, did we want an ad hoc or a standing committee? I did not have the knowledge. Casey didn't have the knowledge. Those of us in the room did not have the knowledge to say, not ad hoc, we want a standing committee. We wanted something to move forward. It was that we did not know.
And did we at the other working group say that we were going to request that the ad hoc be an open meeting ad hoc, and that we were going to request that each working group have a board member represent on that working group?
We talked about that, yeah.
And there'll be one public interfacing meeting, but
the next
I think
on the list.
Working groups have supervisor at.
That was, that idea came from Devin, was to have a board liaison.
And maybe we should.
We need an ad hoc, but a board member, ideally not one who can.
Maybe when we present that to the board, we could say that that came from the Farm Bureau?
Actually, maybe we have Devin.
Yeah.
I have a quick, Hannah, I wanted to ask you, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You're concerned about, because I think I get where you're coming from. The working groups are working on items that may or may not require amendments to the ordinance. So you're asking essentially about the bridge between the two groups.
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing I can think that would cross over with state recommendations in local ordinances are recommending that these are the state regulations, and for consistency purposes, you may want to consider checking.
Well, actually, there's a few more that I could think of, Sarah. There's more, like, for example,
the direction from the board that they must do all local ordinances. The only thing that may even remotely kind of fall into that area for the state requirements is saying we're lobbying for these state changes, or these state changes are in effect. So you should look at this when you do your ordinance.
for example, the changes in the building code, or the changes in the environmental health regulations to allow tasting, or whatever, those would all require local ordinance changes.
Not cannabis side necessarily. But it seems like the ad hoc committee at the board level is going to know what our topics are that we're working on, because we're not going to know what they're discussing. So they're going to be like, okay, these guys are discussing this topic. That's not something we're going to be discussing in this group. That's how we're going to know that it's not being duplicative. So
I'm really experienced in this process, and I'm not always here in person, but I'm always there on that phone, quite often just listening. We have a lack of process. Every meeting I've ever participated in, any group I've ever volunteered for, any board I've ever been, we have an identified process. So I have to propose a process of how these groups can work.
This is like just repetitive of everything we talked about in the last group.
Right.
And that's why you're getting this reaction from us, because it's like the hour and a half we did this, now we're back to
Well, I know, and that's what I wanted, this cycle I'd like to.
Which is why Sarah was talking about one group.
But I'd like to try to break that cycle by making a proposal of how we interact. And so this is what I would do at volunteer meetings, so I am volunteering, is that we have a staff person, I'm assuming one of y'all, that by the week before the Thursday meeting, we submit our agenda items. Okay, the agenda goes out for staff members and board of supervisors to review, give feedback. And then we identify action items. We identify who's going to carry out the action and what date they're going to report back on that action so that we can move forward. Because I've gone through this meeting of confusion I don't know how many times.
I think we talked about it in understanding that, as myself, it's coming from industry side as opposed to government. And we really don't have, we're just here to work on some ideas and give suggestions. The board can either take them or not. There's no way we can say these are items we came up and identified that the board needs to work on, because we are not an advisory committee. We don't have standing. We are working on these
But
issues.
we still have to have a process for that, Ron. And I feel like it's
And you're right. I mean, as I said, we had that earlier on.
the process of how we can communicate better is all.
Yeah, we did have that process, and then when we had our cannabis manager, we moved away from that process. And lost a lot of work. So basically, you know, like I said, like from the time we had the executive officers heavily involved, to the time we didn't have anybody involved, we cut that time.
Excuse me, I have one last question.
We have less than 30 minutes. We have less than 30 minutes. And I think, while this has been a good discussion, a lot of it has been duplicative to the last meeting. And so I would suggest that those of you that still have questions go on and listen to our last meeting, and you'll hear a lot of what you're talking about now. So
can you tell us when that recording is going to be available?
Early next week.
Okay, thank you very much.
What we've done is really talk about, if we go to the board on state requirements, what would we even say? What would we report out on?
Well, for one thing, the permanent regulations are imminently coming out, and following that will be a 45-day comment period, and so we can get to robust activity working on that.
I agree.
And then I think we're going to discuss the state time program and how it affects the ordinance and how it doesn't affect the local ordinance. What these inspections are, when you have to come into compliance, where do you send the information? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be out.
So, you want to go out that one, John? Yeah, go out that one.
I'd like to hear from the rest of the group first, in case, so I can answer.
This is Karen, and I have a really basic problem here. Since the advent of the ad hoc committee, their statement was that they would address anything in the ordinance, local ordinances, not being discussed in working groups. That's a lot of stuff. But the reason that the working groups were formed was to try to bring information, logic, and rationale to the board for changes to the ordinance.
Yes, you're right.
Now,
you're right.
We're X'd out of ordinance changes, and we're talking to ourselves. Productive work is going on. If that's
But you know, those of you that were in the room were asked. I mean, John McCallan actually asked, which I think was, unbelievable, because we don't normally do that. But, he asked, he wanted to show of hands, basically, when you come up to diet, say whether you want the ad hoc or not. And there were not a majority of votes against the ad hoc. And if there were, maybe that would have made a difference.
Well, but we didn't.
Oh, Casey said he supported the ad hoc.
Supported it, and I said a process.
I mean, we can beat this one to death, that's for sure.
We didn't know.
I'm going by what they said they wanted. And
they changed their mind.
Yeah.
Changed their mind.
So all I'm asking is there a way for staff to inquire, apart from some formal setting or meeting context, that says, okay, John, what are you guys really planning to do, and why are we still having working groups to give you input if you're taking over the ordinance amendment?
Well, I appreciate that, because the first thing I thought of when they formed the ad hoc is, why are we doing working groups?
Why are we doing a parallel path with no
I think Ellen has an answer.
connection?
Ellen, we're talking to John.
No, I haven't talked. I think that the working groups were formed initially because it was clear that people involved in the cannabis industry had a vast store of knowledge about the details of what is required to grow and to sell and the markets and the products and all of that kind of stuff, that there was no way the Board of Supervisors could
for the part, no. And I think they agreed to the working groups because they wanted to take advantage of that expertise to eliminate unnecessary barriers that were into the ordinance inadvertently. But I think some of these larger land use issues are the purview of the cannabis growers, but the whole county. And so I think it's appropriate that there be a distinction. And Siobhan, I think you bring up a good point. There are instances where the two things kind of interface and overlap a little bit, but I think that it was that particular expertise that the growers actually had that, you know, the Board of Supervisors, for the most part, was not even aware of, and when they realized the expertise that was there, I think they saw the working groups as a way to tap into that somewhat efficiently.
But now that knowledge gap, I've seen, hasn't closed appreciably. I mean, you know, there's still a knowledge gap about the industry.
We're still learning.
It's changed so much on the state level. Yeah, and the industry itself is so volatile statewide.
I'm sure that's true, but still I think you can make a distinction between those things which are the expertise of the growers and those things which belong to the purview of the entire county, people who grow and not grow and do other things and have other ideas.
I've always been of the opinion that they should be the same group. It should always be a full community. I don't want to ghettoize Kansas City, or I'm done with that.
Yeah, right.
But I want to know, how do we bridge this gap? Talking about it. This is what concerns. Yesterday, I took a whole bunch small manufacturers who cannot get permitted in Mendocino County down to see an 8,000 square foot facility in Santa Rosa and take their manufacturing there.
Yeah, there's a lot.
That's a true story.
That's like the Rquirements story.
Well, I can't see, other committees that are formed have seats that are filled by various representatives, and you have to have somebody from this sector of the community, and you've got to have a representative of that sector of the community, and you know, it wouldn't be an ad hoc committee, it would be
We started out that way.
commission or something.
But Ellen, if I could, we started out that way, this room overflowing.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's like, what happened because we didn't assign people specific slots that people fell out and didn't come? Or what is it? I mean, for me, it's desperation for my business to be here, to be involved, to
Well,
fight.
that's why a lot of people get involved in politics have a real personal investment in it.
Sure. Could I raise a question to the group? Would it be outside of our scope to, during our presentation to the board, to request that they allow someone to be a liaison between the working groups and the ad hoc committee, or is that, do you think that's beyond the scope of our abilities? Well, I'm literally just
To make a recommendation, you know, since we're going to go to the board on August 7th, we can make a recommendation that there be either a liaison or something. But here's the thing, if you know, we're already going to make a recommendation to have a board member at each working group. So you can't really have 3 board members talk about something outside of outside of a board meeting. So that means that this may not work because, like say this one is Carrie Brown, the next one is George, the other one is Dan Jurdy. You can't have Dan then go and talk to Dan and John. Because 3 people out of...
I meant someone from the working group as the liaison director to the ad hoc committee. No supervisor.
And maybe not the supervisor here to take someone from here and put it in with the ad hoc.
So how that could work effectively is that when that ad hoc forms, then one person, each working group is on that ad hoc. So you would be bringing information, so you do it that way.
So open the group of 2 to the group of 6.
Well, you know, I think this is a really good recommendation.
Yes.
It's probably the best recommendation we can.
At least 2.
But let's make sure we capture this.
Great.
So the recommendation to the ad hoc is that 1 to 2 delegates from working group, in the board ad hoc on the local ordinance.
Boy.
That's great.
Yeah, that would open us up.
Good job, Carmel. Good job.
Yeah, that would open it up, and we would know what's going on.
So, 8 people. Yeah, we would get it. So, it could be 8 people, but see, because at some point,
You can say no.
they're going to have to reach out to the industry to be part of that ad hoc, and honestly, they can pick and choose who they want. So, in this case, if we make that recommendation, then there should be a better cross-section.
Yeah.
And so we can do something like...
Go two, that way they have an industry and an outside.
So, like for track and trace, it could be, Ron, I think it's trace. And steam comes out of my nose. Yeah. So who would it be? Ron and Marty, and then for building, I don't know who, for state, whoever, you guys can decide among yourselves. So I don't have to sit down.
Wait, we're closing building.
And then overlay, and I don't know who's on overlay, but we do.
That's also,
Right? It's closing also.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. It is?
Well, it should be. Well, we're going to have an ordinance.
Okay, but this is a recommendation we will absolutely make.
Otherwise, we have.
So I'm listening. I want to see what Ella's response is.
And I think that was partially by
I'm digesting.
Do we want to say, you need someone from either the environmental center or
We could make, actually a recommendation.
Farm Bureau, or I don't know.
Don't make the recommendation so onerous that it's just.
Yeah, the only thing is that I don't know of any ad hoc. Well, I'm sure there. But let's leave it at that. Let's make the recommendations of the 2 people from each working group right now.
Instead of having supervisors attending the working group?
Yeah.
Or we could say we discussed that.
I think both are good, but I think having them here and listening in more depth.
But the drawback.
Well, as long as that person isn't going to speak to that.
I think it's also a matter of.
Well, then you might as well make it the ad hoc. You have to, and if that's what you all want to do, I'm okay.
Well, the other side of it is that they could always lobby the other 2 supervisors to bring this back as a standing committee and not have the ad hoc. That's a long shot.
For those of you in the room that don't understand the process, because we talked about this earlier, a standing committee is a Brown Act meeting. It is an open public meeting. It has to be noticed, and any member of the public can walk in. An ad hoc is not like that. An ad hoc could be 2 supervisors in a back room with the door closed, making all of these plans and then bringing them to the board and saying that's the recommendation of the ad hoc. So you have a big difference between an ad hoc and a standing committee. And standing committees are good for lots of different reasons. The other difference between them, and this is one of the reasons why Supervisor McCown recommended an ad hoc. An ad hoc is a very specific charge, where a standing committee could be much bigger. But if you recall, in the past, we have done standing committees for cannabis and for other topics. So, but that's the difference in those 2. So whether the board ever switched, and the board did switch, if you remember, with the ad hoc before, the board members got very upset with those 2 ad hoc members and eliminated the ad hoc and moved it to a standing committee. So it very easily happen again.
Deja vu. Yes, it is Groundhog Day. Did you just say that?
Just to say one thing, I know we're not going to be duplicative with the ad hoc and then the working groups, but it just seems that if somehow we were able to create a list of these are topics in the ordinance that really need to be looked at, and just give it to the ad hoc, and then they can dissect it and decide.
You can do that. You can write a letter.
Okay.
individual.
Okay.
Write a letter, and you can send it to the full board, not just to the ad hoc, to the full board.
So the public can interface that with the ad hoc.
We received an inquiry regarding potential changes, and I added things that I'd gotten from other cultivators to go to the That's why I was asking, does it make sense for us to just say, hey, can we collaborate? Besides that, it's impossible. We take it to them in a public forum and see what they say.
Well, I think which we're going to do by making the recommendation. So I think that at this point, I think we actually have a couple good recommendations that have come out of this committee. We're going to have one more meeting on August 2nd before, is it August 7th? When is the next one? The first board meeting in August, I think, is the 7th. So August 7th will be the board meeting that we will all report out, okay? So we'll have one meeting the first Thursday in August, which is the 2nd. It'll be the same time frame for all three that we've just done, 9:30, 1:30, and 3:30.
The agenda is what, 7th?
You will be...
Published that day.
Yeah.
By the end of the day.
Yeah, so it may not... We may have everything. We may have to actually add to it on Friday, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So, so we're good.
Okay.
And since certain working groups are going to phase out, are we going to decide today what the next one's going to be, or are we going to wait to then?
Yeah, you're right, the board has to. Okay,
But the ones from the 8th, Mary Lynn has a list of the ones left.
See what you at the end of the day.
Cycles and numbers that went away, right?
Right.
So transferability, which, branding, economics, education.
Which is kind of there, but we're trying to transition that into a countywide with the Mendocino people.
So there's a thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Yeah.
to this venue on.
Yeah.
Do we want to have a working group for that?
No, we were already
Okay.
working with West College. I have to transfer it over to that effort without having to do that. Without that one, what's the
It's the last one I have is processing, manufacturing, packaging, distribution, and non-cultivation. So that's kind of
The micro.
absolutely. I didn't have it on the one.
That last one is
That's it, yeah.
Okay, so we can call it micro.
We have, I don't know, did we call microbusiness in those?
Yeah.
Back over on the marketing.
In the old days.
What happened, because I was on the marketing committee and I didn't know that it's been disbanded.
We're trying to transition it to the county effort because there's a county-wide effort, and it makes more sense with all of the various associations that it's a you know
But there
what I'm
could
saying.
be, we could talk about how we bring in the industry into that. We've been using this company as our lead.
They can help with that, but they can't help with other things that they
So there's really just some of the quick list left, basically, transferability and microbusiness.
As far as business development.
That's not to say we can't.
Yeah.
They can't work because of their
Transferability
they can't work with cannabis. That money that we give them,
waiting a year to have a meeting.
that money they can work with cannabis because it's not federal. I'm not sure what the feds would say if they knew that West Company was actually assisting
We're just not going to tell
cannabis industry with the county dollars. It could be a problem for them. So honestly, we don't talk about it too much.
Independent.
You saying what I said?
I thought
West Company. West Company is a really good organization, and Mary Ann Petrello is one of the best executive directors I have ever worked with. She's done a lot of branding for us, and she's really good, and if you can get her to help you, you would be...
But this is on the staffing company. I don't know if you know I'm hosting another job fair, because some of us just have to keep working. No matter what these positions are.
Good job.
Next working meeting is, please, is it August 2nd?
August 2nd, Thursday, August 2nd.
And know that there's 2 working groups that haven't met yet out of the ones that she just listed because some are being folded into other things. Can we go ahead and schedule the next working group, or do we have to get
I think that's a recommendation. We're closing out these working groups so we can bring on new ones, the ones left on the list.
I know that, but we do. But so we're asking the board for direction on which ones we can then meet. We have to get permission for that, or we can't decide that on our.
No permission. We have to close it out and say we want to open up new ones.
Well, then we have to recommend which one we want to start next. We should really
We are.
We close out 2. I know, but they're.
So are we doing transferability and microbusiness? Transferability and microbusiness.
Let's say microbusiness and transferability.
Yeah. Can we call transferability something else?
Yeah.
Flexibility of ownership.
Economic reality.
Permanent ownership.
I think the thing is that they're looking at it in two different perspectives. So transferability, meaning literally transferring a permit that I've earned, versus a potential new owner having the, being eligible. Except that nobody has ever grown on a rangeland property. They're not transferring. They're a new grower and a new owner. And that's, so I think there are two sides to this, and not just one.
But the ad hoc's going to talk about it in land use.
Because it's much broader than that.
Investment.
Partners in, where it's not all in one person's name. And I know that Dan's presentation last Tuesday was about land use permits, so that there's actually a permit that goes with the land, just like having a hotel or a restaurant that's on the deed, that when someone goes through this extraordinary vetting process, and I've been through a major use permit application, and what people are being forced to go through for this cultivation is an unbelievable difficult. And they're doing what's required in a land use permit. With this approach, it would be one of the biggest remediations for these resource lands to allow it to be more open up, and this is what Dan was talking about, because you've got all this property cash, and if you give them the opportunity to become legal, they're going to go through an incredible amount of
LSA.
standards. Otherwise, it's going to go up for sale, and they're just going to be left as a big mess. And they're cutting out, and I believe, calling it transferability is really dated. The language flexibility, it has to do with separating the land vetting and the actual subdivision license. It's a far more complex subject. And I suggest that that term, call it license.
It would be different. It would be different if we were Sonoma County, where they would just go in and bill you, and there's enough value in the property for the county to recover their funds for cleaning up those properties.
So this would be the largest ecological remediation if the resource lands were opened up. You would take trashed out locations, and right now it's limited to smaller areas that are really not optimum for the purpose. And also on the market, and there has been an effort that MCIA, an organization called Mendocino County, Cannabis Industry Association, some of us are here working with MCPA, where there's experience in marketing. West companies, in my opinion, should be part of that, but not leaders.
Yeah, I'm confused about that.
MCIA is the trade organization, and experience in this from lodging. And, you know, my dream is for us to form a cannabis business improvement district.
Yeah, that'd be great, actually.
That's what I've been talking with Callie from Rquirements. We've worked together for 10 years, and that's good. But what I'm trying to suggest is put ahead of the MCIA that is formed now a trade organization that's working with MCPA, which is the promotional organization. Combined with companies, we can get something really going here.
And the original intent, too, was to bring back that working group for another meeting where Mary Ann was there and Kelly was there, and this was all going to be board, and that was going to be the recommendation. Didn't happen. So, you know, 2 months later, we're here. And that's still the intent, is not to combine effort.
So we put effort into this, and part of what slowed it down was the problem with the CEO, which was not helping resolve, and now it's trying to go bringing it back together again, but I wanted to make a push for MCIA as part of that process.
The ad hoc committee did say, Dan Hamburg said that he wanted to make sure that the land use permit would be discussed as part of the ad hoc committee. So if we're going to have a transferability, whatever you want to call it, working group, we have to be careful that what we're presenting is not also in that land use.
And a double fine.
Yeah.
I remember Dan saying that.
Yeah, it was actually how he agreed to.
Yeah, his vote was based on this.
Yeah.
Separating the land cultivation license itself. The land goes through this whole vetting with ecological things that are more extreme than any other agricultural industry. And it's awarded. And then Devin, her letter, was not meant to be politicized. That was basically saying, how come a farmer who's between the law all these years, and if he wants to get cannabis, he's excluded? The answer is open it up.
Change the ordinance.
I've said that, yeah.
It's not right. And that's what Dan was trying to present. And the process of doing the use permit, that's what the ordinance sequence. And each company looks at individually. Well, that's what I'm going through, many of us are all going through, is much worse than a typical use permit. So also.
Actually, it doesn't bypass CEQA, it just makes it each project is subject to CEQA individually.
And I will say that that is what was originally presented to the board in 2016.
Yeah.
I will put that on our record. It was everything used for it, no shutting anyone out.
We could also.
That was 2016, so we're literally here.
Take a guess.
There were some people who objected.
We should also, from a more meta perspective, think about the other communities. A lot of the other programs are land use based. And so we are one of the outliers. I'm not saying that to say the whole program should be changed around. The reality of it is we are talking about land utility. And so, and that's why I wanted to throw this out there to see what you guys think about this. There are only 2 working groups left, and the discussion is about which one to recommend, which one to move forward with. We know it's part of this is going to the ad hoc. Does it make sense for us to move forward with micro-business first to see where the ad hoc goes? Because like Mo just pointed out, Supervisor Hamburg was very clear about his participation being based on the use being their subject matter. So I'm just wondering, and also if we don't and we want to keep moving forward with both, how justify that to the board when asked?
Because this work subcommittee that we had different recommendation options, and the land use permit was one of them. And if that doesn't work out, then we have another way, and so I think that would be, we're ready to present too. We don't even need to have that many meetings. Like we're ready. So just need the green light.
And I think it's important too, from their perspective, to articulate that the working groups function not just as expertise in the industry, but also we're very active with policy. So we're interfacing with CDFA, we're interfacing with other organizations, other counties, and so there's that perspective to bring to the table for the supervisors as well.
I think we could look back at a little bit that for a year or two there was a really conflict between the activists and the board of supervisors, and they went with the Appalachians measure and got 36%. And then John McCown specifically told me this. He's like, "Yeah, now look what what are they going to tell us now? They got 36% of the vote. Now we're going to put in this initiative the way late, but we have to get it done quickly because we have to get people being able to apply for the state licenses and get that process going." So this is actually bringing the community back together. They're actually getting our input, getting to the county, whereas for a while when this initiative was put in, there really wasn't that much in the beginning. There wasn't that much time and there wasn't that much talk between the community and the board of supervisors in terms of what's put in there. So.
We're around 1, because it's 1:55. I actually think we had not only good discussion, but I think we've come out with a few things.
Okay.
Again, on the 2nd, we'll start, Sarah, and go that way.
No.
What came up with like a job description of what the working group, like all of your qualifications? Just part of a report or something. I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I mean, you guys say this all the time, but it's never down in writing. So yeah, they've never really seen it. So when they see all the expertise they have in front of them, and I don't know.
I got you. What is your argument for going forward with the microbusiness one before the land use transferability?
Because
that's the hot topic that the board doesn't want, and I think that the ad hoc committee, that's what they're going to look at, and they're not going to want to hear it from you guys until they've hashed it out between the two of them. That's my only opinion.
Yeah.
I only brought it up because I wanted to know more from you. I don't really have an opinion either way. I'll support the group with whatever decision we make.
And the micro-business, we would get into having those micro-businesses be able to process for up to 4 acres for other farms.
From a cultivator's perspective, who has been wanting the option of a micro-business in order to compete with the other license holders that are gouging cultivators. That's the beauty of a micro-business. But why even think about investing in all of the compliance required for a micro-business if again, you have no way for a return on your investment. It's the transferability that.
No, I get that. Yeah.
Important thing for the county's economy, not just the individuals, but the county's economy. So I wouldn't put it second.
Okay. All right, let's keep going. I have to be somewhere at 5.
What was 6?
So.
I just said my last.
Yeah, I think it was a very productive day. I think that if people next week go through, I know it's going to take time, but to listen through all of the meetings today will give you a good sense of where we're at to at the end of the day.
Thanks for your participation.
I approve the recommendation.
Where's the baby?
5 minutes ago.
Why didn't you bring him in?
No, I was like, not.
You have somebody with them?
Yeah. No, he's just all in the hallway.
I'll be right there. Give me a minute. We bring dogs, babies. It's real.
Okay.
Bring the baby.
My recommendation would be that we move forward with recommending microbusiness and permanent ownership change as the next working groups to go forward, since there are 2 spots opening up. And, yeah.
Okay, so my recommendation is everything that we decide or look at, we put it in review of economic development to keep our districts alive and healthy. And pass the word and do the job fair. And last year we had over 600 people show up. And I've got, because the fires happened right afterwards, the feedback I've gotten is minimal, but I did do a survey monkey on my registration. I know that about 400 really good registrations I had, 70% were from zip codes in Mendocino. And so we are going to try to hire within, and many jobs and long-term positions were established. And we'll probably have 50 to 100 different positions that will be coming up. And then we'll have 2, I'm forming a staffing company, first a recruiting, then a staffing company to help place people with different needs, because it's like every other business, some people need 1 or 2 hires, so they don't really do a job there. And then there will be a management company who's looking at the farmer worker aspect of it, so that we can have that. So these are the layers that we need. And so please network me and follow me on Facebook. No. Whatever.
Thank you. Great.
Oh, shit, I was going to send these to Coppola. I'm just hoping
She's just outside with the baby.
A little more communication from the ad hoc as to what they are really planning to do. Because I hate to be, the wet blanket on our enthusiasm. But I don't see how Supervisor McAllen is intending to take further recommendations from our working groups. He seemed to make it clear that he was going to get in there and fix that ordinance.
Well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I think we've we've developed a really good recommendation today. I will actually follow up with both of them, not today, but I'll follow with Thursday. Tomorrow I'll see if I can talk to both of them and just let them know
and that's all I'm asking.
that the working groups are making. And so let's see. Let's stay positive on this, because we really did a lot of work today. Stuart.
So I feel that these groups are very, very useful. I've gotten personally a lot out of it. It's been a fantastic forum. Part of the new market, we're all facing different things with changing regulations. So this has been a very good forum. I do think that eventually it should be something permanent, like an advisory board. And then just digesting a little bit of what we've gone through and my talk that I did at the Board of Supervisors last Tuesday had to do with the lack of a business plan. And the marketing was only part of the business plan. And also how do you support these small businesses that are trying to get going and interface that. We might even want to consider having a working group that has a business plan. Ecological sustainability is a part of this because our financial sustainability is very important. What I mean by this, and we can bring people in from other industries to say, well, how we work how lodging and wine and different chambers come together. And then also to support what the new thing, we are having WIZO now where we can modify the permanent regulations. And we just got information on that. And things that came up in the building planning had to do with the generators, the F1 commercial, that this group is supposed to be making recommendations so that our county can make recommendations at the state level. And so we have time to talk about it today, but that's a subject for out in the generator rules in the state, which is very unecological. I think that we should also somehow get that out to the board, that we can make recommendations at the state level while we have this window of opportunity, and to consider possibly having a work group, having to do oversee the business plan of how we're going to support this industry, both for the small farmers, for holding and marketing together.
Do you know of any counties that have actually developed a cannabis economic development plan? Or cities, counties or cities?
I've done some research on that.
Would you do that? That would be really helpful.
Oakland, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Please.
that'd be really helpful.
San Francisco.
Even, yeah.
Basically, the cities that have a equity program. Yeah. Which is weird we don't have one, but.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not going to be redundant. I support most of what everybody said here. I think this was a good meeting. It was pretty productive. And going forward with both of those working groups is important. I'm cautious about, I think it's important that we do make the recommendation to the board of supervisors that we have.
You can do that.
It seems to throwing two people from every working group out them is just like, if I was them, knowing them, they would be kind of routine. So let's make a proposal that we think is going to.
Yeah, but see, you can't have a supervisor come here and then go to the ad hoc and report out. That can't happen.
No, I'm not even on.
So just reduce the number of people to be on the ad hoc.
Okay.
I agree with you, Jude. I think for 2 or 3 people would be fine.
Okay.
I can't wait to hear what John has to say about that. You know, it's old stuff. I mean, we all have old stuff. I've been doing this for 28 years. I mean, I can tell you some of the underlying things going on and why we can't move forward and old attitudes that just got to go away. You know? All those years Pebble did have it as factory neighbors. How many of you are aware they were next door neighbors? Oh. I know. John O'Land each other tomorrow.
Recommendation to have liaisons to the ad hoc committee. I think that in efficacy on the groups having a really clear process in place so that whoever those individuals are, that, you know, there's a process of creating agendas, making recommendations, and that there's clear recommendations that we all clearly stand behind, that we're entrusting those representatives to carry forward. So that's one thing. The other thing I'd like to recommend for us as a working group is to watch when the final regulations drop, read them, and develop our recommendations so that when we meet again for our next state requirements working group, we have a clear sense of the regulations. Because we have 6 weeks, but, you know, that goes very quickly. We can process
Whether they're going to drop
any second.
Yeah, I called them yesterday and boy, that is not.
I think it's going to be tomorrow. That is what, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
It's possible it's tomorrow.
Yeah, just to be conscientious of getting those recommendations to the board so we can get that official recommendation from the county.
Good meeting, lots of good ideas, good work being done. I've been somewhat missing in action, but trying to stay abreast of things, and I appreciate this update. Good idea.
Oh, yes. Is there anybody left on the phone?
Yes, this is Jen. I'm still on the phone.
Hallelujah, I'm still on the phone.
Okay, final last words.
So, Jen, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing everyone's recommendations, so I apologize if I'm being redundant here. But recommendation is for us to just move forward with requesting both the microbusiness and permit ownership change working groups forward, and I also support having working group members participate in the ad hoc committee or having some kind of liaison group between the two groups to ensure our efficiency. I do not recommend we have board members join the working group meetings. And I also just want to put it out there that I'm unfortunately going to be out of the country for the next meeting, but I will try my best to be on the phone for that one as well.
I'm also having trouble hearing people. What Jen said, other than me, I agree.
Brian, Julia.
I'm having trouble hearing what everybody's saying, but I think that what Jen said, because I could hear that,
with minus being out of the country, I'll be here and I'll be at the next working group, and I'm hoping that there will be an agenda ahead of time that we could at least contribute to. And I'm really very interested in discussing at the state working group the pilot program that my department's under with the state. It's, in my opinion, a significant change.
So you can get to it. Okay, I have nothing further except I think it's been a good group. I do want to thank you all. I know that you're time, and I also want to say that sometimes I sit in those meetings and I think the board is not paying attention, but they really do. I mean, you know, we're all human, and sometimes we have other things going on in our lives, and so you have to be up there and you have to be on, but there's 50 things going on. But I do think that even though a lot of times they don't respond, or they certainly don't respond positively to everything that's being said, but they really are hearing, they really are listening, and you know, we'll get through this. We'll all get through this. It's just, you know, sometimes tougher for me, and for that, I'm sorry, because what happens to you happens to the rest of the county, and you know, and we want, I certainly want the cannabis industry to thrive. So, yeah. Do you have anything, Cass? No. Do you have anything, Sarah? All right, everybody, have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you.